Hello. How's everyone today?
Hello, good. How are you doing?
Good.
Hello.
Welcome to everyone watching our show on another Demystifying post-production, the last for this particular series, the last Monday of the month. And I'm here with Madame Ellie Wade and Monsieur Lionel Vicidomini, and the background is Carl Johnstone, keeping me from making mistakes. And today we are going to conclude our compositing and AOV workflows with one of the most requested subtopic, which is masking and mats and all that kind of stuff. Is that correct, Lionel?
Yes, exactly. We'll see that, and among other things, how to deal with alpha channel, because that's also difficult. And we'll see also to composite title, to composite stuff inside from After Effects inside a Cinema 45.
Fantastic. So before we proceed, I'm going to go through a very quick housekeeping, and let me share my screen. Oh, I've got Carl doing it for me. Good, because I would press the wrong button. So if you want to see what events are going on that have to do with Maxon products, go to the Maxon's to the maxon.net/events page, and everything is here, nicely ordered with a good search function. Now, these videos, if you don't catch them live, which are simultaneously broadcast on the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, on the Maxon Training Team channel, and on the Red Giant YouTube channel, you will find them recorded with timestamps kindly added by Dr. Sassy on the Maxon Training Team channel. So all these shows, they are recorded and then presented only on the Maxon Training Team channel. So go through these to catch any older shows you may have missed. Quick tips, video list of amazing stuff. I do them, that's why I have to say that. And don't forget to go to the Maxon YouTube channel and the Maxon ZBrush channel, which has a lot of great stuff. Now, if you want to become certified for any of the Maxon products, and specifically Cinema 4D, you can always go to the Maxon certifications page and check out where it says Cinema 4D Pro User Certification. The reason we always mention this and emphasize on it is that if you press on the certification topics, you get to this page that has an overview of all the various features and workflows we consider at Maxon, at the Maxon Training Team, to be necessary for you to sort of master Cinema 4D and have a solid foundation to move on. You can twirl these down and see a few more details about these things. They're not many, but they're quite interesting nonetheless. So if you're trying to learn Cinema 4D, it will give you a guide of what you need to learn. Now, of course, as a token of appreciation for your participation in our shows, you can go to the merch store over here, and you will see the links posted in the chats. And until the end of the month, you can use the Redshift AOV, all caps, no spaces, to claim your free t-shirt, and postage and folding is the only thing you pay for. Folding is a bit expensive. I don't think it's the postage the problem. And of course, you can go to the News University and check out all the amazing tutorials we make there. And finally, don't forget to visit the old University, because there's thousands of tutorials that touch upon all subjects and emphasize on a lot of tutorials made by Dr. Sassy decades ago that technically they still have a lot of relevant information. And pretty much the Master of Cinema 4D has made tutorials about everything, I would say, with quite confidence. And this is the housekeeping. And now I'm going to pass the baton of knowledge to my very good friend, Lionel Vicidomini.
Thank you. So welcome today for the following of our series about compositing. So we'll see, we're going to see how to composite alpha, how to use masking, how to add title and so on in After Effects, and keeping the right color. So right before, I want to show you again my tutorial on simulation I just released on Udemy. So I have created a coupon for that. It's Maxon Training Team. It's going to be pasted in the comments. So don't hesitate to buy it. It's good stuff. I spent quite some time on it, and I hope you will like it. So that's it about self-promotion. And now let's head to Cinema 4D. where we're going to use to see our scene. So let's go to this one, which is the original scene, where we have a render here. So we have seen how to do a simple compositing using just diffuse lighting, reflection, and so on. Last week, well, 2 weeks ago, we have seen how to use the advanced compositing using the filter and so on. And this time, we're going to see how to properly set up mask and all the configuration of mask you can have. So, because masking is very important. Usually, in compositing, it's very interesting to have, for example, the plant here alone, or the cushion of the chair, or the piece of cloth here. You want to tweak the color and so on. It's very easy if you have already made mask, especially even more so if you have animated sequence. Here, I'm always showing static stuff, but the whole workflow is aimed for animation, because you can, of course, just paint on that with Photoshop. And Dustin Valkama has done some very good tutorial about this. But here in After Effects, the idea is to have sequence, to have moving picture, so that we can change the color with the motion of the camera, and you cannot realistically paint every frame for that. So we're going to use mask. And last week we used already the Cryptomatte, so we're going to see more precisely how it works. So in this scene, we have our stuff here. Just a reminder, I'm going to set up a very simple AOV workflow. So we want to go to Redshift, AOV Manager. Just before that, I'm going to the render settings. So we have Redshift, everything is set up the way it should. In the AOV, I'm going to use the direct AOV from Redshift. So here I'm taking multipart EXR. I have set the depth to half float. So half float is actually full float simplified, if you want. It's the files are going to be smaller, and you will have all the bit depth you need. The compression here is DWAA. You could use DWAB. Both are very good. They are lossy, but they are going to give us a very good result. But we will see later that when we're going to use custom AOV, that we can change the compression on a layer basis. Okay, so now the manager, I just need to click here, and I can use here all my settings. So let's use our diffuse lighting emission. So I'll go faster than before because you know already about that. The reflection, the refraction, the subsurface scatter, the specular lighting, the emission is already done, perfect, and the volume lighting. Okay, so once again, you only need what you use in the scene. If I hadn't had anything using SSS, I wouldn't put it. Same thing for the refraction. If I don't have anything refractive, you don't need to use it. If you don't have volume light, don't use it, and so on and so on. So this is the basic minimum. And I don't want to use multipass from Cinema 4D. I want to use the direct output from Redshift. So you just need to tick that. And now for each layer, you will have option. And at the bottom here, option for example, the format, the bit depth, compression, and so on. So I leave everything as it is for now because it's good enough. It's going to output the result to this path, which is the one from your file. As you can see, we have file path, file name, path. So it's going to render to this directory. Okay, so this way I can have the basic compositing, but I want to have a few masks. So to create mask, you have several options. You could use object ID, but I'm not going to use it because it doesn't work very well with After Effects. There is a way to use it, but it's a bit convoluted, and it doesn't work as well as the two other options. So we're just going to pass on that. It could be a good option for Nuke and Fusion. For After Effects, not so much. You don't have any good point using it. we're going to use instead the Puzzlemat, very, very powerful, and the Cryptomatte. Okay, so let's start with Cryptomatte because this is the easiest to use. So you just add your Cryptomatte here. By default, it's going to work as it is. You don't have to do anything. I'm going to untick here the multipass. It's going to give you another file, meaning that all those paths here are going to be embedded into a single file, but the Cryptomatte is always a separate file. It's the way it is. You cannot really change it, okay? And then your Cryptomatte, you just need to change the ID type you want to use. So usually the object name is just going to give you a separate path for every object in the scene based on the name. That means that your tree, not the tree because I have hidden it, but every object here are going to give you a separate mat for it. So it's very powerful, but it can be a bit too much, we will see, because you will have a lot of different masks for everything. So let's call it this one, crypto object. And we will see the result in After Effects. Okay, you can add another Cryptomatte. That's a good thing with it. You can have as many Cryptomatte as you want. So this second one, I wanted to use the material name. Okay, so material name, it's going to give you a separate mat for every material. Okay, so as you can see, there are a lot of material. Each one of them is going to give me a different mat. Okay, the Cryptomatte depth is actually how many material can be inside one pixel. Actually, it really has its importance if you use depth of field inside the render, because with depth of field, you will have blurry pixel on top of each other. And this way, it can discriminate and know which mask you're going to use when you have overlapping object. Okay, you don't go too far here if you have a high depth of field, because it's going to take longer. But in any case, don't use here 1 because it's just not going to work. Okay, so the default value of 4, is it 4? Yeah, 6 is pretty good actually. Okay, and that's about it. But just before that, a word of caution about the Cryptomatte. It can give you some very high render time, and the Cryptomatte can be pretty heavy too. If you have a scene with 1000 separate objects, it's going to give you 1000 matte, different matte. That's a lot to process. Okay, it can sometimes double your render time, just the Cryptomatte. Okay, so you need to be careful with that. And typically here, just adding those two, it's going to almost double my render time. So it's not that bad because the render is pretty fast for this file, but still it's a bit long. So I'm going to save this with a new name because the AOV are going to use this name. So you can see very bad naming convention. So let's call it Cindybench webinar 01. All right, I underscore because I'm going to add some other stuff. And now I'm already ready to create my path. So I don't have the depth of field activated just for the sake of speed. I could use here the depth mat, but we have already seen that, so we're good with it. Okay, it's going to be very simple path just to see how to composite this back and to use the Cryptomatte. Then we will see how to use the more efficiently the Cryptomatte and also the Puzzlemat. So let's hit render, and here we are. And yeah, just a reminder, when you use here the direct output, oh yes, forgot something, sorry. So I just deleted here. Yeah, a word of caution about the save here, the save feature. So actually, we're not going to render any multipass image. I can just untick that because we're just ignoring this file menu. everything goes through here, this direct output. But I want to save a regular image in JPEG, just to have something, to have a thumbnail and a low format, low pixel depth format to send a client or something like that. Okay, it's not necessary, but this one will be the final render with the color transform of OCIO baked in. Okay, so let's put it inside my scene, render, and let's call it Cinebench webinar. Because it's a JPEG, it's going to save it in 8-bit per channel with the color transform baked in, even though we are in AC's OCIO color transform. Okay, so let's launch now the render. And because it's going to take, well, 1 or 2 minutes, if you have question already, I can answer. Is there already a question? Maybe not.
There is a question by Hannah, and the question is, when rendering alpha objects, transparent objects, I would assume, like glass, do we need to change each AOV direct output type to RGBA?
We're going to see that. It depends on the scene, but yes, usually you're going to have at least one of the path using RGBA. That's what's really nice with the direct output, is that for each pass, you can specify if you use alpha or not. So you can use it for 1 pass or 2 pass. It depends on your scene. We will see that for this scene, for example, it's, well, because we have the background, we have to do a bit of work to actually have an alpha and still have the lighting for the background. We will see that just after the matte, the Cryptomatte, puzzle matte, and so on.
Excellent. Abdul is asking, why do we use a UV pass? I think that Lionel is going to show a use of the UV pass, so be a bit patient. And last question, why do we have 2 Cryptomattes? Sorry, Cyril, you have to watch the video from the beginning. One is using the object name, and the other one is using material name. And because the Cryptomatte has different modes of splitting up the colors to identify objects, you can have object IDs. I think you can have all sorts of things, material IDs, and so forth. You can have different Cryptomattes that separate the objects in different groups. So you can have, you know, all your glass objects, for example, to put them on a single Cryptomatte layer, and you just give them an object ID that's the same. But at the same time, you want separate masks per material, so you're going to use material name, and so forth and so on. So you can do combinations.
So yeah, just a word. The scene is very dark. Don't worry about that. This is the base rendering. Then at the end, it's going to apply all the color transform. So the OCIO transform for the picture viewer. Okay, so it's going to brighten up. And actually, this is not even because of the AC's transform, but because we're using the exposure from the camera. So here, yeah, there you are. Okay, so don't worry about that. This is the way it's actually, this is the way the scene has been made. This is not my scene. This is the scene from the Cinebench benchmark. And the people who did that actually use the camera to brighten up the light of the whole scene. That's why when you render the final image, it's all dark, but in the end, you can see it's fine. Okay, so this is our JPEG and our file has been created. So now let's head to After Effects. And in After Effects, I'm going to start a new project. Yes, why not? Okay, and so first, I'm going to set up to OCIO color manage. So again, this is the same thing we have done for now 3 times. AC's CG, and that's it, and 32-bit per channel. Okay, that's all you have to do. Click OK. Now I'm going to import the different file. Okay, so if we go here to our Cinebench, in the render, we will see here our Cinebench webinar. So this is the JPEG I have just rendered. So let's import it. And as you can see, it doesn't look at all like we wanted because we are in ACs. So again, because we're using all the OCAO workflow, this JPEG, which has the color baked in, doesn't look like it should. So you need to transform here, change the profile from ACs. This is not an ACs CG, this is an sRGB. So let's go here, interpret footage, main, color, and then let's choose here sRGB display. And now we have the proper lighting. Okay, so this is my JPEG. This is just for reference. Now I'm going to import the actual file. So the actual file, let's sort by date. It will be easier. And we can see here we have our webinar. So this is the main AOV. And those are the two Cryptomatte I have set up. Okay, so let's start with this one. Create composition. It's going to assemble, pre-assemble everything. So very quickly, because here this is a simple one, we can see we just need to put everything on add. And that's it. So this is our beauty render without postfix. Again, this is something we have seen the first week, so I will move on. But this is as simple as that. Like I said, this is the workflow I prefer using. The one I showed on week 2 with the diffuse filter and so on is much more powerful, but very often overkill for what you want to do. Okay, very often I don't do that much inside After Effects, and I'm very pleased with just this very simple setup, which doesn't require any pre-composition and so on. Okay, so now we're going to import the two Cryptomatte. So the two Cryptomatte, you don't want to import them as composition. You import them as it is, like that. Now, if I use the Cryptomatte from, so this one from the object, let's put it on top. And you just need to use here the Cryptomatte effect. And that's it. Now, when you have here your Cryptomatte effect enable, you can choose inside this window. So let's actually increase the size. So you can choose here anything, and you can see my arrow is some kind of white. That means I can click here and create a matte. And another one using Shift, another one using Shift, or I select this one instead, Shift this one, Shift this one, etc., etc. Okay, it's very easy to add those. If we take a look here in the layer and selection, I click there, you can see we have ID. Those ID are the actual sets of selection which have been created by Cryptomatte. So just to show you this, you don't need to do anything, but this is actually the selection we do. So let's select, for example, again, the top of the chair, which is green here. And once you have done that, the way I like to use it, I put it on mated RGBA. So it's going to give you this result. Let's solo the layer. It's all black, but now you have an alpha. Okay, that's important because we're going to use it. This alpha will be perfect to tweak the inside of the chair here. So what I do is I take this one, I pre-compose. So you can go to Layer, Pre-compose. I want to move all attribute into the new composition. That's important. And now I have this composition here. I'm going to use it as a layer effect right here. Okay. So if I use it as a layer effect, now any effect I put on top of it is going to apply to the matte area. So just the chair. So now I can use, for example, the fill to do something very drastic. And you can see it's going to fill the whole thing. So now what I can do is just use here the color mode, the blending mode, and put it to color. Now my chair is red. Easy. If I just change the color, it can be any color I want. And it just works. As you can see, the matte is very good. The matte is perfect. You won't be really able to do a mask like that by hand. It's a lot of work. And of course, if your camera is moving, if you have a sequence, it's going to work as well. So it's pretty easy. Do it this way. If you want to change, you're going to see inside the composition. Let's go back here. I'm going to see the colors. So the colors are only for you to work with. And for example, I want to change, let's say, the color of the plant here. So I'm selecting this one, shift this one. And yeah, you need to change to the hand. Yeah, it's a bit difficult. Let's just double click here. It'll be easier, I guess. Yeah, as long as you have the effect selected, you are stuck inside the selections. Okay, this one, and that's it. So that's the whole plant. Now I can go back here and switch back to method RGBA. And now if I go back to my assemble, now it's my plant, which is green now. So instead of doing this, I can just go back to normal. And instead of a fill, use a hue saturation to just tweak the color like that. So maybe more like this, decrease the saturation, maybe increase just a tiny bit the lightness. As you can see, it works. And you don't see really fringe effect or so on, because artifact, because you have a very good mask. So this way you can have a lot of masks. So what I could do now is use the other Cryptomatte. This is the one with just the material. So let's import it. And same way here. Now I can put it inside, add the Cryptomatte plugin. So as you can see, it just looks black without the Cryptomatte plugin. You have to use it to see the colors. And now I can just use the material. So I could use the material just to the color of the wall. Again, method RGBA, pre-compose. Let's switch it to layer effect. And now I can just use exposure, for example, to brighten the wall. See, very easy, it works very well. And I didn't even use any of those paths, meaning that I could have just rendered the beauty and just work with the Cryptomatte, and that's all. Okay, you don't need to use 40 passes every time. That's not because if I show how to use 40 paths, don't mean that you need to use 40 paths. You can just use just one or a few like this. As you can see, I just changed a lot of things in the scene with just 2 Cryptomatte, and that's it. Okay, so the bad thing about the Cryptomatte, the way I use, is I don't optimize the render time. As we saw here, it took 2 minutes and 59 seconds to render everything. That's more than the double of the original. Okay, so we're going to see another way to optimize the result. So let's close this. I'm going to, well, let's delete them and use another one instead, Cryptomatte, and use it the way I use it. Actually, I use it with the RS object ID. This way I can select which material, which object I want to use. So RS object ID, now you need to put object ID in your scene. So for example, I would like to have this coffer here, the chest. So use S to see the chest, and this is this whole thing. As you can see, we have metal parts, leather belt, bottom, a lot of things. And I won't go back to After Effects, but you could see that we have a lot of colors for the whole chest. I don't need to have all those details. I just want the whole chest as a whole. So what I can do here, just check that it's everything inside the chest. Yes, there is also, yeah, this is the chest, this one. Okay. Another way to see it is use the solo layer using hierarchy. Okay, so this is the chest. Right click, render tags, RS object, and choose an object ID. Let's choose one. Okay, now chest 2, let's use here the viewport solo automatic. So now I can switch from one to the other. So that's another chest here. And I'm going to use another RS object. Let's call it 2. Okay. And now what I can take is the whole chair. Well, actually, just the chair. Yeah, perfect. So the whole chair with here the, I don't know how you call it in English, the seating here and the cushion on top. So you can use here another RS object, and you just choose your object the way you want. So I will have only 3 masks. But it will be much faster to render because it doesn't have to sample everything, etc., etc. Much more efficient. Okay, and what we could do is maybe add, yeah, maybe the floor. So let's exit the solo. So the floor S is this one. Right click, right shift, object, object ID. And yeah, don't forget how many object ID you have created. Maybe you can write that down on a piece of paper. And now I will have 3 matte. So I can just re-render everything. Actually, here, AOV manager, I'm just
You have
going to give
4
me
mats.
those.
Lionel, I think you have 4 mats, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2,
Yeah,
3, 4.
1, 2. Oh yes, yeah, I forgot the chair already.
Just save the render time.
Yes. So if I had done that, the chair and the floor would have shared the same mat, which is not a big deal because this is a still image. I could just have tricked it with a manual mask inside After Effects. But yeah, that's better. Thank you, Nazman. So now I can just render again, and it should be much faster. Well, faster anyway.
There is a question that everyone has, and I know the answer. Is there a way to render the Cryptomattes without rendering the whole image? And I think, yeah, you can say that.
No, you can't. That's a feature that's being asked. But what you could do, because Cryptomatte just doesn't care about lighting or whatever, you could just kill all the lights, put all the material to something very fast to render, like incandescent, kill the GI, and so on, so on, so on, so on. You will have a very fast render, but still the Cryptomatte will work.
A suggestion for that is to use the render settings as well. You can make a child render setting of the current render settings and switch off anything that's not necessary. Maybe reduce the rays, maybe do all that stuff. What you shouldn't change is the actual sampling, especially the general sampling, which deals with anti-aliasing and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So
We
this
do
way
have
you will have,
Go ahead.
you will have a very fast render and the Cryptomatte.
Yep. Now, there is a question here that maybe you can or cannot answer by Lloyd van Urnen. When using a solid in After Effects in this OCIO configuration, do you need to change something to get correct hex codes for changing diffuse filter? I'm not sure for changing diffuse filter, but maybe you understand better what the question is.
Yes, that's something we're going to see. That's one of the main, well, it's not a disadvantage, but that's one of the main issue I would say with ACs is when you add a title or bitmap from in After Effects into your composition, the color are going to be wrong, but they are not wrong. They are just interpreted by ACs. Okay, they're not wrong. So you need to use something else. We will see that later to get the correct color. It's pretty easy. You just need to know about it. So actually, you could even do it inside Redshift during render time. It's not a good idea. If you use this trick, if you're going to force Redshift to use the real RGB value that you want to use, you won't get a correct render. It's a very bad idea. That's something you're going to do in compositing. Okay, I thought about showing that, but I don't want to show a bad way, even if it's to say don't use it. But yes, if you want to use a precise color, you need to use compositing to get to this precise color. That's something we're going to see. All right, so well, I'm disappointed because the render time is almost identical. So 4 seconds, that's still something. But I guess this is StreamYard taking strain on my machine. If you have a scene with MoGraph, for example, with a lot of objects, the Cryptomatte can already expand the rendering time. Still, I saved a few seconds. That's not so bad. Okay, so let's see inside After Effects. So I just put everything on top of the original. Let's delete those two. I'm going to import the Cryptomatte. And actually, the Cryptomatte should be the last. Yeah, it should be just this one. I should have renamed it. But anyway, this is the Cryptomatte. Let's put it here. Let's use crypto. And now you can see we only have the matte I asked. So this chest, this one, the chair, and that's it. And actually you have even one extra bonus matte, which is, I would say, all the other. Okay, so here it's pretty easy. If I want to have just this chest, click on it, put it in mated RGBA, pre-compose, move all attributes, and now put it in layer effect and use here my exposure to get back a bit of light on our chest. See, it works pretty well. I could even do something like that, and that doesn't work, but just to give you the idea. I could tweak the color and so on, just on this object and nothing else. So as you can see, Cryptomatte, super easy to use. So now let's see another way. The last way, I would say, inside Redshift, which is the puzzle matte. So again, I'm going to delete here my Cryptomatte, and we'll see the puzzle matte. So the puzzle matte is a bit more complex to use, but more powerful, because the puzzle matte, you will see, has the ability here to reflect IDs. So we will see about that. It's going to give work on object ID or material ID. So you need to set up your object. And I have already, actually, I'm going to change one of the chest. I don't need to use this chest. So this chest is going to be ID 1. The floor is going to be ID 2. And the chair is going to be ID 3. Where is the chair? It's here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And they're going to refract against each other. So now I'm going to specify red is 1, green is 2, blue is 3. Actually, I could do 3, 2, 1, or whatever I want. Or if I had used here object ID 6, I would put 6. It's going to give all the RGB value, a value that you can use. So let's render it. We will see that. I'm just going to make the render faster. It's going to be ugly, but it will be much faster because we cannot wait several minutes every time. So it's going to be very, very, very grainy, just to give you an idea how it works. So let's render. Puzzle matte, I'm just, refract 1, 2, 3, object ID, perfect.
I want to jump in and just say the following thing because I do get this question. The puzzle mat allows you to put up to 3 components into a single render. Imagine that red, green, and blue are a black and white color, each one of them, and when they mix, they create the colors. So don't think of it as a color. Think of it as 3 black and white images, where each of these RGB images, each of these 3 images, can hold a mask of an object or a material. So if you want to have more objects, you can have as many puzzle mat AOVs as you need. If you want to make 12 different masks, you will put 4 puzzle mats and assign the values either from the material ID. And when you go, if you can show at some point, Alana, where the material ID is, not everyone knows it. And I'm saying it because about a month ago, I didn't
Yes.
know what the material ID was.
Yeah, it's a big hidden. So if I take my leaf, for example, you will see it. Yeah, it's in base. Yeah, every time it gets me, it depends. No, it's not an advanced. It's actually a layer you have. Do you remember, Nozman?
The output node. It's not on
It's in the output. Yeah.
Yes, you need to click on the output.
Yep.
Yes, that's the trick. Thank you. You can see it's hidden. So if you take the material as it is, it doesn't work. You need to open this, take the output, and then you will get the ID here. So same thing. So you ID1, ID2, and so on and so on. That's very tricky. Thank you. I had forgotten about that. All right, so let's go back to an After Effects, where I added this puzzle mat. So here, because I've added a puzzle mat on a render I have already done, this is actually this one. So how to get back this puzzle mat? What I do is I just take any one of them here, duplicate, call it puzzle mat. Let's go inside, and actually each one of them has the effect extractor. If I click on the layer, I will see here our puzzle mat. Okay, so that means that any pass can transform into any other pass. And that's how you get your new pass without having to redo everything. So puzzle mat, and like Nozman said, you have 3 colors, and you can see what's interesting is here the color of the floor is going to bleed on other objects. That means when I change the color of the floor, it's going to bleed to contaminate the color of the wall as it should, because it reflects. It would work also if I saw my floor through a glass, for example. You can see here my chest is bleeding red on the lamp. Okay, and here we can see there is blue of the chair bleeding here on the table, and the green of the floor is bleeding on the table also. So that's good actually, because you want, that's the way light work. You will have color bleed everywhere. So you actually want to have that. You don't have that with the Cryptomatte. So what you need to do now, I want to work on the floor. So the floor is the green. I'm going to change here the puzzle mat to green, green, and now I have a proper mat. Okay, very simple. Now, what I like to do is to use the set channel, not the set channel, sorry, it's the set mate, yes. And here we're going to take the use from mate, the luminance. Yes, I need to pre-compose. I don't know why it doesn't take the effect, even though it's here. So let's pre-compose this thing, move all attributes. Okay, now I have this set mate, and we're going to use the luminance. So now I have a proper matte. Okay. And if I go back in my assemble, I can put this new thing, which is this one. Yeah, this one. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's put it on top. Let's put it as layer effect. And again, now I can just tweak my my floor. I could use, for example, a fill. Why doesn't it work? Let's see. Oh yeah, this is not the one. Sorry, I messed up. So this is not this one. This is the pre-composition or the pre-composition, which is what? No, where is it?
A little quick tip for everyone: use names
Yeah,
that tells you what everything is. This is, I think, the whole seminar boils down to this: use naming. Right. Thank you.
exactly. So where is this thing here?
Why don't you pre-compose it?
Yeah, it's. But oh yeah, I call it. Yeah, of course, it's the puzzle mat because it was the original one. Sorry about that. So puzzle mat on top of it. Okay. Now let's make it a layer effect, the fill, and here we are. And you can see we have the red bleeding everywhere where it should. So of course, using just red is just horrible. But if I put to color, now it's somewhat more accurate. You can see there is a little bit of color bleed, red color bleed here. So it's very subtle, but it does work. I mean, it's how light react.
I just
So
want to say one thing. If anyone hasn't used these techniques, especially using the puzzle mat with the refractions and the reflections, you have no idea how much faster your workflow is going to be and how much you can react to customer changes. It's absolutely amazing what you can do. I've been doing this kind of stuff for years, especially in my previous life before I became a teacher. It's unbelievable the flexibility you can get and the artistic expression you can have. I just want to stress that. Thank you.
yeah, the Cryptomatte is the best. Crypto puzzle mat. I'm sorry.
Puzzle mat.
Puzzle mat is the best. It's almost the only one I use. Crypto is amazing the first time you see it, but then it's take a bit longer to compute. It takes some space on the hard drive, and you don't need that many mat. Actually, you just need usually 1, 2, 3. That's all, and the puzzle mat does that. But you have the color bleeding integrated, so it's very powerful. It's especially useful if you see something through a glass. That means that through the glass, your color is going to change. With the Cryptomatte, there is no way to do that. Okay, so that's it about masking. As you can see, there is not so much to do. You just have those two options. Eventually, you could use object ID, but it's not as efficient, especially in After Effects. Really, Cryptomatte, puzzle mat, that's it.
Yeah, that's the object ID. Forget about it. It may there's nothing you can do with the object ID that you can't do with a puzzle mat or the Cryptomatte. So that it doesn't have any unique advantage. You have to change the same settings and so forth.
Yeah.
Shall we go over a few questions?
Yes.
Now, there's a very good proposal by Pavel saying instead of rendering in Redshift, you can render only a mask in standard render without light and with luminosity material. Now, that is a good suggestion, but it has a catch. Number one, your result is not going to be pixel perfect because the way standard and physical render calculate anti-aliasing is not exactly the same as the anti-aliasing you have in Redshift. So if you're not looking for pixel, it may end up having a bit of fringing and so forth. And the other thing is, in Redshift, we have various types of lenses you can have, spherical lenses you can have. Those kind of effects you won't be able to propagate them to standard render. So if it's a straightforward lens, pretty much you can get away with some of these things, especially if you're not, you don't want pixel perfect results. But do that with caution, right? Do a test render Always do a test render before you commit to a multi-day rendering. Any comments on that, Lionel?
No, that's it. It's a very good idea actually, but you have to be aware of anti-aliasing.
Right. Next question by Ibrahim. Can I render lens effects such as bloom, flares and separate matte, like in Octane? So this was answered in one of the previous ones. The answer is no. You have to render a beauty pass and then subtract. The beauty pass AOV doesn't include the post effects. Is that correct, Lionel?
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
You just subtract, yeah.
Exactly. And you do a difference layer. So you will create a beauty AOV. You will do just like Lionel showed. You're going to save your main render not as a JPEG. Use some sort of the same, I would say, something that's lossless, a good quality.
OpenXR without. So here I would go just here, use the regular save in OpenEXR, and don't use bake view transform. Do not use it.
Do not use it. And what you're going to do then is the result you're going to get in this file, which is going to include all the post effects. And the AOV beauty pass, which doesn't have the post effects, you layer them in After Effects and you do a difference blending mode. And that will take everything that is common and make it black. So then you're going to have your post effects, which you can add on top of the rest of your renders. It's not, I mean, it sounds like a big deal, but it's not a big deal. The other thing you need to be aware, which Lionel mentioned in the first episode of our series, is that all these post effects are post effects. They're not real in-camera effects. So they are good for when you are doing look development, but the suggestion is that you replicate them in post. They are available to you if you want to do a direct render and have blooms and all that, but they're all effects you can replicate in compositing, and you're going to have more control because they're not baked into your image.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, you're not.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not supposed to use post effects as it is. It's just a preview if you want. But actually, a lot of people, including myself, like to use post effects as it is. No problem with that. But you're not supposed to use it. Yeah, that's why there's not a pass.
You're supposed to use it if you're trying to do the normal thing, which is to break the rules. Okay, so that's when you need to use them. When everyone tells you don't do that, that's when you need to do that. Let's go a few. I think I answered this. When using names-based Cryptomatte, must I give each object a unique name? Yes, same names go on the same Cryptomatte mat, and it's actually, you can use that to your advantage by using the object names and naming all the objects you want to belong to the same Cryptomatte color, the same mat with the same name. Is that accurate, or did I totally mess that up?
I believe it's the way it works, because Cinema 4D use a unique ID in the background, but I think it's if you have the same name, it will be the same mat. I didn't try that.
Then try it. Right, that's my advice. Okay, let's see what we have here. In which case to use Cryptomatte, and which case Puzzlematte. Do you have a unique insight into this?
I hardly use Cryptomatte. Actually, Cryptomatte is when I'm in a hurry. I don't really know what I want to do, so I want to have everything available. Puzzlematte is when I know exactly what I want to do, and usually this is the one I use because I have the color bleeding, the color reflection on the other. So I hardly use Puzzlematte.
What I would say is it ties in with when you're in a hurry. First of all, you can use them both, right? If you are not constrained by time, because it's going to take slightly more to render, the Cryptomatte is great because you just add it, and it just, you can put by name, and if you have a proper naming convention or materials, you can add them both, and that will give you a lot of the objects and the grouping. And then for specific objects, you can add your Puzzlematte, so you can get your reflections and refractions. So if you want to be very specific on what you're creating a mat for, the Puzzlematte is ideal. It has more function, but you have to set it up manually. Whereas with the Cryptomatte, you just add it and it will give you some sort of grouping, providing you name your objects differently. that ties in with the previous question. If you're not conscious about your render times, which again, it only adds about 3 or 4 seconds to a render, maybe 10. I don't know. What's the worst case scenario in this particular case? Add them both, because you never know which matte you're going to use. It's better to have a few seconds slower render rather than have to re-render the whole thing to begin with. Always start with one frame or a small amount of frames, so you know exactly what you will need. And because when you render again, the sequences are going to be overwritten, then you actually don't need to redo the work you've done in After Effects. So you won't have an issue with frame sequences. So render a small part, see if all the data is there, and then when you're satisfied that you have all the data, just do a re-render with all your animation preview, animation range. Oh, I just answered this. There we go. And let's see what this is. Can you render an object and its shadow and isolate it with transparency behind with puzzle mat? We did show. You did show the
shadow pass.
part.
So actually, the answer would be yes, but without the shadow. If you want to have an object and its shadow only, it's almost impossible. The shadow is all shadow in the scene. So there must be some clever way using masking and so on to get just the shadow one object, but no, not an easy way. But actually, to have it through an object, you would use the puzzle mat anyway.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it more, a shadow is not something; it's the absence of light. So in the case of renderers like Redshift, it's it wouldn't be easy to isolate the actual shadow of a particular object. I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting topic for us to investigate and talk to the Redshift team about.
I just think Pavel has answered it. This is a way you use the Redshift objectile matte override matte shadow, and this is more or less what I'm going to do to use the. But you would do render just for that object. That could be a way. You have one render to get this object with the shadow. Everything else will be on matte shadow.
Yeah, and I guess this extends the ability, you know, the tools you've shown, the AOVs and the Cryptomattes and the puzzle mats and all that, some of them require a bit of setup time, but they're fairly easy to do. If you want to do extreme compositing, then you need to start working with takes, you need to start working with render settings, you need to start working with isolating objects in your scene and so forth. So technically, you can do whatever you want.
Yes, with takes, that would be another way. I'm sure about that. But yes, here, if I wanted to use this workflow, not really. I would need to use something else.
But
okay,
so yeah, go ahead.
That's very good, because now we're going to talk about alpha. Okay, because this is a bit difficult. If I render the scene, I have everything, and I would like to change the background. So let's take a look at the scene. Actually, we have this box, which is where everything is, the window, which has some material, glass material, and then we have this backplate right here. Okay, the backplate here is just an image with a bit of emission on top of it. If we take a look here, emission, yes, we have an image with a very, very low weight. Okay, so if I want to have transparency, I will have to cut through everything. So if I just tick here the transparency alpha channel, it's not going to work, because anyway, I'm not using the saving from here. This is just for reference. So I don't need to use that. I'm going to use here in the Redshift AOV manager, where you can add your RGBA. So here I'm going to add the beauty. I didn't do that earlier. Let's put it on top. And the beauty in direct, here I have an option to have the data type to RGBA. So let's choose that. Now it's going to give me an alpha channel. But if I hit render, it won't work anyway, because everything is opaque. There is no alpha in the scene. the window, everything is going to give me some blank space. So, but I need to do that already to create just the alpha channel, to have an alpha channel I can work with. So now I need to check that your glass, so I selected the glass here, I'm going to add here, so this is the glass, select the material, check in advance, I think, that we have opacity affect alpha channel, okay? You need to tick that. I don't remember if it's on by default.
Right click and set as default. See what happens.
Yeah, check it anyway, because reset to default. Yeah, it's on by default, so that's cool. But sometimes with older Redshift file, it might be off. I think that's something they changed at some point, or I don't know. So this one must be on. Then I have here my backplate, which is still opaque. And here I could try with the visibility and try to make it invisible. But primary ray visible is not going to work because I'm seeing it through the window. So that would be secondary ray visible. But in that case, it's not going to cast GI. It's not going to light the scene. So I have a bit of a problem because this object might add some light to the scene. So actually it doesn't for this scene. I just checked it just to show something. It doesn't actually take light into the scene. It's not strong enough. But let's say it is. So one way to do it is to use the matte shadow. If you use the matte shadow, override, enable, and don't forget to put the alpha to 0. So that means now it's going to be seen through, and it's still going to light the scene. Okay, it's still going to influence the reflection and so on, but it's going to give us an cut alpha. Okay, I will be able to have this. So now you have to you need to check something else, because we have here a Redshift sky. So Redshift sky is going to take the scene. If we go to in the override, we can see we have a background. I need to uncheck that also, because it's going to show through. And maybe force alpha to 0. Maybe I don't need to do that. Anyway, let's try the render view to see what's going on. So yeah, I'm not going to use the bucket rendering. Let's give it a few seconds to... Okay, I don't need this one. All right, so this is the result. And if I check here the alpha, I can see my alpha, so it worked. Okay, I didn't even have to enable the background, because this is the beauty, where I ask in Redshift to add some alpha. Actually, I'm even surprised that the Redshift sky, oh, maybe this is the other way, I guess. No. Okay, that's a bit weird, because it should give us some white alpha. I mean, it seems to be working, but it shouldn't be working. I'm a bit surprised, but anyway, I have my alpha. Okay, that's the point I wanted to make. You have your alpha. Then you have to think about something. If we go back here to our RGB, we still have this white thing. So yes, actually this is... No. Okay, well, anyway, so you're going to have this white stuff. So what we're going to do is add also in the asset AOV manager, in the refraction, we're going to add some alpha here also. So RGBA. And now if we take here the refraction, we do have some alpha also. Okay, that's important because it's going to add on top of it. Yes?
A question. So in this particular case, right, this is a unique case where your only alpha is outside the window, let's so to speak. Wouldn't a simple Cryptomatte or Puzzle Mat do the
Yeah.
job?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it would.
what work intelligently. Yes, if you require the alpha for some specific reason, go for it. But if you can extract what is supposed to be an alpha channel as a separate mat, then go with that, because that simplifies the whole process. Doesn't You don't necessarily need to go and click these buttons
Yeah.
and all that. So again, when it comes to preparing your scene for compositing, think smart. What do you need? And there may be more than one ways to achieve it.
Exactly. Here, the difference is if you're, well, actually, you can trick it with the mask anyway, but if your glass is going to retain a bit of substance, I would say it's not totally opaque. So this way you would get it, but you could do it with the mask also. It's pretty easy. I'm sure there's some user case where it doesn't work using a mask, and you would use this technique. Okay, so this is the way you're going to have alpha anyway, and the ability to have alpha just for certain layer. You don't have this ability when you use the output from here. Here it's going to give you alpha channel everywhere. Okay. So now I have the alpha channel where I want to be. I'm going to make a quick render because time is running out a bit. I'm going to do another save. So I have the alpha. Okay. Let's render. It's going to be all grainy because I want to have a fast render.
And we don't have any further questions. That is fantastic. In the sense that everyone understands what we're talking about.
So it's very fast because it's very noisy.
We need a jingle or a song. Elevator music will be ideal for these situations. Kyle, if you're listening, maybe we need to work on that when we're doing renders. Some nice elevator music, annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
With the sound when it's finished, like ping.
Or the goat that After Effects.
Oh yeah, the goat, the After
yeah.
Effects goat. I was thinking about that.
I heard that many people nearly had heart attacks because of that, because
Yes.
they had their speakers on and suddenly there was a goat noise coming. Okay, here we are.
Nice.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, so here it is. Because of the weight of the exterior, we have all this, but because the postfix is not into the beauty, it's not a problem. So let's go back to After Effects. I'm going to create a new project. New project. Yeah, don't forget, this is suppose a bug. When you create a new project, it remembers that you're using OCIO, but it switched back to 1.2. So let's go back to 1.3. Let's import the new one, which is this one, create composition. Let's open it. So now we have the beauty. So I'm going to turn it off and put everything on add. So we have our whole thing. Now, if I take a look at my beauty, you can see the beauty is identical to my composite. So that's perfect. If I take a look at the beauty alone, you can see we have this cutout and we have our alpha. Okay, so one easy way now, you have several options. We can import the same texture that in the render. So it's here, Cinebench, text, and which one was it? It was the exterior, this one. So it's a simple JPEG. Let's import it. Again, I need to change the profile. So let's use here. Well, let's see how it looks just like that. So I'm going to put it inside the scene. Okay, so this is the image. And now what I can do is just use the beauty as a track matte. So track matte, let's use the beauty in reversed. So this is the image. Let's put it somewhere here. And you can see we have the we have our effect. And here we have our refraction. So this is the white I was telling you about. The white which is cutting through also here. But we still have the reflection. Let's see where is, yeah, the white comes from the refraction here. Okay, I think I made a mistake somewhere. Because as you can see, we still have, even though I have an alpha, it's adding the white of the render on top of it. So actually, I think we need to go back into After Effects and tweak with our background here. With the, we're not supposed to see this white. We should just have black. That's the problem. And it has something to do with the background here. So actually, I have the scene, the my saver, so my final scene where it works, which is this one. And what I did here, let's see the back plate. Okay, the matte is all right. Show background. And actually on the sky, yeah, force alpha to 0. I think that's the difference. So let's see if I render. So yeah, definitely I would say that the mask would be the easiest way for this example. Dealing with alpha is always complicated. So now if we take a look at the alpha from the beauty, it works. From the refraction, it works. Everywhere else is as it should. And I think this one I used here. Yeah, the background. Okay, so let's deactivate the background. And we're back with our white background. So we shouldn't have this background. So maybe, I'm sorry about that. It's okay, here we are. You just untick the show background. Makes sense. So now it's a black background. So it's not going to mess up everything in the compositing, but it's still going to light the scene because a matte shadow is still contributing to the light of the scene. Okay, so you need to, this is the one, not the one from the sky. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, there is so many options to tweak and so on. So what I could do is show you the final result. Not with the, I'm not going to render again because it takes some time. Let's just load this example where I have my alpha. So this is the final scene. Let's untick looks. And you have here your file. So this is our object. And if I deactivate here, so this is the background using here the alpha. On top of it. And what's interesting, you still have this reflection. Okay, because this reflection was in the reflection layer. So now we have everything on top of each other, and I can just use exposure to make it much brighter. And I could even use here a bokeh to have a separate depth of field effect with it. So now the advantage is you can just change your background, change the color, the exposure, for example, here, individual channel. Let's add more red to make it like some kind of sunset.
Okay, let me intervene here with a trick. Right. So now we're on the first floor of a building. Move the background up, and we're going to be on the ground floor. Watch that.
Yes.
Now we're on the ground floor. I mean, if anything, this is absolutely amazing. You can change floors just by moving the background.
And of
And
course,
the
just
swelling
change the size.
size. Your neighbor is further away now.
Yeah, and actually, let's go back to master because, yeah, looks nicer. So we can make it not as bright. It just works. Okay, so sorry about the little hiccups, but in the end, here we are. So yes, we could definitely use a mask with rather than this convoluted way of dealing with things, but still it works.
One proposal I want to put forth is sometimes let's assume you don't know exactly how transparent the window is going to be, how much reflection is going to be. One thing you could do sometimes is the window, you can render it in some sort of pass as a full reflection, just like a mirror, and then create a mask as well for it, and then you can control how much of the reflection is going to be visible. So sometimes the final render you're going to do is not going to look out of the box exactly as you wanted, but at the same time you have more. Again, the window has a very, very small amount of reflection. It reflects small parts of the room because it's made of glass, but you don't know exactly how much you want. You can render it as a perfect mirror, providing you make sure the light comes through and all that, and then just tone it down in compositing, and that means that you have a wider range of the amount of reflection you need. And generally, think forwards when you're doing these kind of projects. Once you've nailed down the look of your scene before you go in compositing, think of what tricks you can do that will give you a bit more leeway to add to adjust stuff in compositing. We did have a question, Lionel, about the UV pass. Are you going to show us that beautiful thing?
Yes, this is the next step. So actually, this Cinebench computer start. Okay, so moving on. I think I won't render this one because time is running out. But anyway, this is a scene where we have the same scene, but with the computer open with the Maxon logo on it. So let's take a look at the render with our render view. And the idea here is, well, to have the render with the screen on and to change it into After Effects. And it's pretty easy. And to have the right color, change the screen whenever we want, and have the right color even though we're using ACCG. Okay, so it's pretty blurry, but you get the idea. Maybe what I could do is just turn on the denoising just for show. Denoising, let's use optics. All right, so it's very blurry because it's optics, but still you get the idea. So we have the Maxon logo here. What I use also is this light to create a bit of fog. So this volume lighting, giving this glow of the candle here and here, and also on the computer. Okay, if I just turn off the light of the scene, which is somewhere here. Yes, so without the light of the screen, this is how it looks. Okay, and what I did on this scene, what I'm going to do now is how to deal with this and how to have the correct color, change the background, and so on and so on. So I need to do several things, and we're going to use for this custom AOV. And with the custom AOV, there is the UV pass. So let's go to Redshift, AOV Manager. I'm going again to add the basic setup, global illumination, reflection, refraction, specular lighting, subsurface scatter, and emission. And that's it. Okay, now we're going to use custom AOV to get a UV pass for the scene. Actually, I already have it, so let's delete to see the whole thing. So to have a UV pass, it's going to go through a custom AOV. So custom AOV, we use that the second week to add the AO pass, the ambient occlusion. So here we're going to pass everything in direct, and the custom here, let's call it UVW. You need to use a default material. Okay, so same workflow as the AO. Here you're going to create utilities a UVW pass, and you just drag and drop the material in the default material. So it's going to give you the UVW of everything in the scene. So it's a brute force way because, well, you have all the UV of the scene. But I want to go further than that. We're going to use the custom AOV for something much clever, I would say. I want to have just the UVW of the screen alone. Okay, so let's use a custom, which is going to be called UVW screen. And for this one, the workflow is going to be different. So the actual screen is this one. This is a separate object using this material. Okay, I'm double clicking on the material. This is this one, notebook. Let's double click. And yeah, we can see we have already the setup being made. So I'm going to change it. This is store color to AOV. You can see. Let's delete those two. I'm going to recreate them. So this is the material as it is. You have the emission giving this logo. We're going to use the store color to AOV. Store color to AOV. The way you're going to use this one is right after the standard material. Okay, right here. Store color to AOV is going to ask you on which AOV you're going to work. I'm going to work on the UVW screen. Okay, and now I need to have a color for this. And this color can be actually the state node, which is going to give me a lot of very interesting information, among them the UV coordinate. So I'm going to take the UV coordinate and plug it here inside the input AOV here. Okay, so now inside the UVW screen AOV I created, I'm going to feed the state node giving me the UV coordinate just for this material. All right, so let's do something else. I would like to have just the logo alone. I could use it as a mask or whatever I want. So I can just chain up the store color to AOV. You can have as many as you want. This one I'm going to use add new custom AOV. So it's another way to create a custom AOV. You can do it directly here. So custom AOV, let's call it screen logo. As you can see, it appeared just here, same one. So let's make it direct. And now I'm going to plug here the Maxon logo, which is a flat texture, as the input. Okay, so let's see what everything, the result of everything. Where is my, yeah, it was hidden. Render view, here we are. So let's launch the render. should we ask for the music? No, it's going on. Okay, so this is the beauty. I can see the diffuse lighting, the reflection, and so on. And on the bottom, we can see here our UVW of the whole scene, the UVW of just the screen alone, and last but not least, the screen logo alone. Okay, and this is the pure color. This is not being lit. Okay, it's just as a pass-through, if you want. It's just going to store the color in this AOV like that. It could be a black and white mask, for example, or anything I want. It could be another image which has no relationship with the final render. So that means your your custom AOV can be anything you want. It's very, very, very powerful. It could be, for example, a curvature mask or anything else. Really, there is no limit. And it's pretty easy to set up once you have understood how it works. Okay. So I have everything here. Now, I'm not going to render. Let's use instead the final render I made. Okay. And let's deactivate all this and looks also. So this is our render with the Maxon logo on top of it. Now I'm just going to delete this to start back. Okay, inside here we have our UVW source, screen source, and here the mask logo. So let's put them inside. So the UVW is here, screen source is here, and the logo is here. So if I just use the logo as it is, like that, I could very well use, for example, a Cryptomatte. I've created an output for that. So which one is it? Yeah, it's getting a bit messy. So Cryptomatte, use here our Cryptomatte select the screen, method RGBA, and now we can use just the mask logo as it is, as a track mate for this one. So I just added it on top of it, just like that. Okay, and well, that's one way to create a mask, to put something else inside, but we can go further than that. Let's use here the UVW screen source, and here you need to use a plugin. I'm afraid there is no built-in plugin inside After Effects, so you need to use one. And there is one very nice plugin from, where is it? Yes, it's this one. So it's a FT UV Pass bundle from François Tarlier, another Frenchman, where you can use UV Pass, and also you can use Position Pass. So I didn't include Position Pass inside this webinar because it's already long enough and complicated. We're just going to use it as a UV Pass. I'm using it as a demo, so I will have a cross, but you get the idea. So I installed the UV Pass, and the way you use it, so UV Pass Pro, you're going to put it on your UV here. It's going to ask you for a texture image. So let's use inside my scene, we have a Maxon logo on black, a Maxon logo on white. Okay, so I'm going to use them inside the scene, for example, the white one. Let's put it here. Let's hide it. Let's go back to UV screen source, the effect, and let's use here our Maxon logo. So it's going to put it there. Texture setting, I need to change the size to match the size of the image, which is 1920 by 1080. And here is our Maxon. And now I just need to use the track matte to use again the crypto. And here it is. So this is the watermark. All right. This is because this is an option demo version of the plugin. I couldn't get the plugin in time. So this is the demo version. This is not, well, it shouldn't be there. But you can see I have just changed the logo with something else. Okay. And here, what's interesting, if we take a look at the image, which is the Maxon logo, I set it to in sRGB in the default profile. If you really want to have the final color, you're going to use another plugin because the red is not exactly the right red. You're going to use OCIO display transform. So I put it on top of it. It's going to use here linear RCCG, sRGB display. If you do inverse transform, you go back there with the color, the correct color. So that's also the way if you want to add just a title. If I wanted to add on top of that another title, you can see the problem we have if I use just, so that's something from Cinema 4D, from After Effects, meaning that the color here is pure white. If I go in fill, if I try to put pure white, it's not pure white. I don't know if you can see it with the, but you can see very well the difference with that. And I want it to be pure white, or I would like to be pure red. And this is not pure red. It should be more saturated. So to have the right color, you're going to use this OCIO display transform on top of it. And again, inverse transform, and now you have the right red. So we don't see much the difference, but if I change here to white, you will see before, after.
And that's a way to deal with brand colors in general. If you bring
Yes.
in any image, you just need to reverse transform it so that it shows the proper sRGB color.
So that could be an idea here to just change what I did. But as you can see, it's just weird because you can see it's on top of everything because it doesn't respect the lighting and so on. And that's a real problem with clients sometimes that don't understand that lighting is going to change color, but they want their brand color. And they are very much so entitled to have the right brand color. That's a difficult exercise to please the client and to keep a photorealistic render. I remember one client for some luxury item. He wanted to have the exact color of the leather. And in the end, I almost had to erase all shadow and lighting from it. And in the end, he said, but it doesn't look realistic. Yes, of course, because you just flattened out everything. That's the problem with it. If you want to have pure white, it's just going to look weird, as you can see.
In my
on the screen
memoirs,
here.
I'm going to write in my memoirs when I go into pension in about 40 years from now. I'm going to write about a story why I became a full-time trainer. It's very similar to that. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that's how you deal with this problem, but you're going to deal it with compositing. This way, you can really be sure to have the correct color brand exactly as it should.
And I think this replies to Cyril's question about method. If you had a render to render a product with background, that must be the exact hex color specific to the company's
Yes.
corporate
Exactly.
identity. Yeah.
So here, if I go back to black, now it's pure black, as you can see, but it looks weird. It shouldn't be as black as that on a computer. So yeah, in the end, I would say the right color would be this one.
not according to the client. So let's not get
Yes.
to that
Yeah,
discussion.
that's the problem. So what you could do is use also the mask, the logo source. Or is it this one on top of it? And maybe try to use it as a matte. You could extract the color and try to tweak to have the perfect kind of red you want. But yes, it's a real problem. If you really want to have the correct color inside the 3D render, it's no problem with the 2D render. If you do some motion design, flat design, and so on. But once you have lighting and shading, it's always difficult to keep exactly the color the client wants.
Yep. So let's quickly. The answer, I think, is no, by Mark Wahlberg. Can we isolate VDB volumes with a puzzle mat or Cryptomatte? No, you can have an AOV for all the volumes in your scene, but you cannot use puzzle mat or Cryptomatte to isolate specific volumes, unless Lionel, you have an idea on something I don't know.
That's a good question. I think if it's a fog, you render, it should appear on volume lighting, but I don't think it works with ID. That's something I should try.
I tried it. It doesn't
Yeah,
work
it
with
doesn't work.
material
Okay.
ID. It doesn't work with object ID. It doesn't work. No, and there's no option.
Yeah.
So you can get all the volumes using the volume lighting or the volume fog tint to get the colorization, but it will take all the volumes in the scene. So I don't think that's possible. That's actually a good idea for something, to extend the AOV ability.
So that's a perfect question, because here there is something else I wanted to show you, but I don't think we have the time. But I just use here some light group to isolate every light. And here, for example, we have our volume lighting, and without the candle on the right, without the candle on the left, and here without the lighting from the screen. That I could put on top of everything. And also I have control of the rest. So I could use here on the diffuse lighting, just turn off some light on purpose. So using that, maybe we could get more control of a specific volume, I guess.
Yeah, you have to plan it. Again, it's one of those planning things. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that a specific light or light group lights a specific volume. But again, this is a good idea to create maybe takes or something like that, where each take has a specific volume, and just render it with emission and stuff like that. So there are ways around it, but there's no automatic way. Let me quickly, I think, are you done with the majority of what you had to show, Lionel?
Yes. Yeah.
It
I am.
only took you an hour, 14 minutes. I'm glad. So, last question, which is really a reassurance by Abdul. By using UV pass this way, can we mess with texturing in post? Well, the answer is yes. You can use this to change specific colors and do specific texturing and so forth. And what the UV pass does, it just tells whatever image you're using with that plugin to place each of the pixels of your image in the appropriate UV map. I wonder if you take the scene UV pass and just throw one image, that's going to make something rather interesting, I guess. It's gonna
Yes.
show. Yeah. So experiment, I would say, experiment with these things.
Actually, because I have one, I could just try. I think
Yeah,
it's going
do it.
to look.
Do it. I mean, anyone that has hang out for 1 hour, 40 minutes wants to see this. Right? That's the logo.
Yeah, with the Maxon logo everywhere.
And the watermark. That makes it really interesting. And you can move it around and so forth. But the short answer is, yeah.
It's very weird. You can change the offset here.
Nice.
Looks horrible.
And on that note, it looks horrible. And on that note, well, unless you have any other closing comments, Lionel, Ellie?
Well,
No?
I'm done. Just to say, yeah, the purpose of this webinar was to show almost everything, maybe too much, I would guess, but you don't need to use everything. Again, when I do real compositing, I just use the diffuse lighting and the basic setup I showed you, and just 1 or 2 masks. And very often, I don't even do any compositing. I just use postfix and use the JPEG with the burnt image, the burnt color transform in. You don't need to do all that. It depends on the client, how much time you want, what you want to do, the chance of having to change things because you want to change things or the client want to change things. It really depends. Don't go crazy with the compositing because it can take a lot of time. You can make some error. It's not always the way to go. It's very interesting. It's another tool at your disposal, but you don't have to use it every time. But on the opposite, use it sometimes because it's so powerful.
Excellent. So if you are dealing with clients, go to the Max certification and become teachers. So I think that's all I have to say for today. I want to first of all thank Lionel and Ellie for being with us. I want to thank Kyle for keeping us sane and doing the stuff I always mess up. A special thanks to every one of you that participate in these webinars, and please spread the word. Let's get more people watching these things. We believe we are showing good information. Your feedback shows that you enjoy them. Share the love, share the links, show off to your friends all the new stuff you've made. And yeah, what do we have next month, Ellie?
3D printing with Ian.
Ooh,
A whole
so
series, yeah, on it.
for March, it's about 3D
Yeah.
printing. So we're going to see ZBrush, we're going to see Cinema 4D. I heard a little rumor that we're going to show, well, I do have a 3D printer and I do use Cinema 4D to make my 3D prints, and I do use the volume builder and so forth. And I've made everything from gears to little toys and all that kind of stuff. So I think you're in for a very interesting March, whether you are in 3D printing or not, because a lot of this stuff is relevant across the board. So Blaze, the free t-shirt, go up the chat and find all the information you need. All the links are there and the password. I think it's 7 posts above your post. In any case, watch the rerun and all the information is there. You have until the end of the month to claim your free t-shirt. So again, thank you very much, both of you, for hanging out. Thank you, especially Lionel, for showing us all this stuff and your great experience, and thank you, users, friends, colleagues, for hanging out with us. So enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.